All right. Well, welcome everybody to the Business of Speaking show. I am your host, Tim McDonald, and I am very glad to have somebody who I've just met like probably a little over a month ago. I've been very fortunate to have spoken to him in the past, been part of a couple of his workshops that he does, and I'm just so lucky that he's here with us because I know he is a master storyteller. So how you doing, Michelle?
Hey Tim, things are good.
Excellent, excellent. Well, for those of you that don't know, the Business of Speaking show is really a show not to focus on what speakers share on stage, but to talk about their journey to the stage and what they've learned since. So, with that, I always like kind of starting out, Michelle, by asking you, what's your story of how you became a speaker?
Yeah, it's it's a story. Um, gee, where do I start? It's a great question because it really shows. I think it shows how a lot of speakers get started in speaking. It's like there isn't a course in university that says, Speaker 101. Last I checked, it wasn't in the curriculum. And I think a lot of us start, and I think I'm typical in that respect. We start in an area of expertise that we're really passionate about, and it kind of blossoms from there. So for me, I had my own ad agency. I was a marketing communications guy. That's what I did, and a couple of things kind of came together for me at the same. And one of them was we were we had I'm going back a long time. So back in the 90s, we were on the leading edge of technology. This was before the World Wide Web that now people take for granted. But I remember being in boardrooms convincing CEOs and presidents and C-level people of all kinds that this is not a flash in the pan. This is going to be here for real. And I was lucky. I had a lot of high tech clients when I was doing it. So we really were. I like to think. I can't prove it, but I think we were, if not the very first, but one of the first marketing communications company to really fully embrace the web. And as a result of that, I started getting asked to go on the speaking circuit to explain technology to business. So that was one thing. And during that period of time, I developed a .com business of my own. I was part of that whole boom of bubble and bust and the whole thing, and I became the brand ambassador for that company. So I ended up selling the company, but they took me on as the brand ambassador, and my role really was to go around the country, both countries, North America, uh, and talk about what we were doing. And I was going to, because it was focused in the creative space, I was speaking to a lot of arts colleges, Rhode Island School of Design, Parsons, and California, the whole bit. I was going all over the place. And the comment that I kept getting over and over again was, Michel, you're very motivational. And I have to tell you, Tim, at first that was like the biggest insult. I said, what? Motivational? You got to be kidding. No, I talk about real content. Because the impression in our heads is motivational speakers just fluffy stuff and whatever. But I kept getting this feedback, and I realized there had to be something to it. What I realized after looking back through it was that I told more stories than anybody else, or your classic uh, content speaker. And so that made me think that maybe, and I loved being on stage, so maybe I should do more with it. So a couple of years later, when I left that company and I was in one of those, proverbial "what do I do now" moments, I realized that I had a skill, and my skill was going back to my marketing communications expertise. My skill was helping my clients figure out their core differentiation, what truly sets them apart from everybody else in the market. And I combine that with, well, I'm also pretty good at speaking and I'm passionate about this stuff. And there's one more element. So there was those two elements came together. And one more element was that when I was working with my clients to help them drill down to their core, their brand differentiation, what I discovered is when you get to their core, when you get to their base, every single time there was a story. It was a story that explains not why I do what I do, but why I do how I do what I do. I know that's a bit convoluted, but what I always found was that your differentiation, your brand different. I'm speaking for too long. I'm going to let you ask another question in a minute, but
Oh, I
but
love this.
is this making sense to you? Is this
Yes.
yeah. So it's really those three things is my love for being on stage that I never in a million years expected to have or discover. My background as a marketing communications guy and my accidental stumble upon this whole storytelling thing, and you put those three things together, and I started really talking about brand differentiation. I really started speaking about that. That morphed into storytelling, and but really in a way it's funny because I do very similar what I do even 20 years ago, except 20 years ago I went in through the gate of brand differentiation. I would come out with a story. And these days, because storytelling has become a buzzword, I like to think I was doing it long before anybody else, but everybody talks about storytelling, but I do the same thing. But now I go in through the gate or the doorway of storytelling and I come out the other side with brand differentiation. So it's funny how it all comes full circle.
It is kind of funny, and
Now,
I love
was
how.
that more of a response than you were hoping for?
No, well, yes, it was more of a response, but in a good way. So I'm kind of curious though, because you said something pretty interesting that I wanted to hopefully dive in a little bit more with you, is you never focused on really being a speaker, and now you love speaking. And I know you said something, but I hope you can maybe expand on this. What was it that got you to realize this is what I love doing?
Oh, wow. So I think this is going to resonate with a lot of people who are listening. I am, as hard as it might seem to believe it now, but I am an introvert. I've always been a super shy kid, shy beyond belief. And speaking on stage was one of those things at first that like scared the crap out of me. And I thought, no way would I ever want to do it. But at the same time, it was one of those things that says, that's a challenge I'm going to put out for myself to be able to do this, to be able to master it. And what I discovered is once on stage, this whole other side of my personality I was able to tap into that I didn't know was there, that I enjoyed. Hey, I like this guy. Now, as closet or classic introverts, you know how you could tell the difference between a classic introvert and a real extrovert? So an extroverted speaker, when he gets off on or she gets off stage, they've got tons of energy. They want to go, 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 go. An introvert gets off stage and I just want to go to my hotel room and recharge because it just as much as I love it, it drains me. And same thing happens when I go to networking events, when I go to parties and all of that stuff. It's kind of like I got two modes. I've got the mode where I'm, cracking jokes and being the center of attention and doing all that stuff, or I'm in the corner being a wallflower. But I don't seem to have that middle ground. That makes sense. I mean, can you relate at all to this?
I relate to it because as you're talking, I'm very much the same way. And a lot of people don't even like that know me from being online and going out to events are like, if I say I'm introverted, they're like, you're crazy. And I'm
Yeah.
like, no, but I have, when it's that switch that you say, there's no middle ground. It's either you're all on or all off. And so, when you do that though,
Extroverts don't really understand it, but I think every single introvert who's listening to this, whether it's live or on the recording, is say, "Oh, like," uh, and a lot of performers are introverts. And when you think about it, Tim, and hopefully this will resonate with you too, is the introvert. And we all take our advantages to the stage and we make use of them. But the introvert's gift is, having been an introvert, we are the observers. We've been observing for so long, sitting in the background, watching, analyzing, making sense of the world. And finally, when we're in a position to be able to share that, that's when we've got to develop that whole extroverted side of us. But that's what drives my speaking content. It's all the observation that I've had the gift of having.
so for those people that maybe are considering themselves and can resonate with this introverted side, how have you gone about it, and how would you suggest others could go about like actually taking that and turning it into something, that can be an advantage when they're presenting, when they're up on stage?
Well, so this kind of maps to what I do in my branding side of the business, and it's been the basis of pretty much everything that I do. Regardless, I truly believe that who we are as people is always has our superpower as professionals. It's not like we're two different people. It's not like I'm this way in my personal life and this way in my professional life. And it's usually the parts that we are most insecure about. It's usually the parts where we feel most vulnerable about that are the basis of our superpower in life. And that's where our brand differentiation is. That's where our lens of the world. And so I would say to people, I mean, there's the content side, like what do I have of value to offer to the world? And I think every single person has value to offer the world, because we all have our challenges and experiences that we have learned from. And every single one of those can be turned into a valuable insight that somebody else can use. So that's from the content side. And then there's the whole craft of speaking, the craft of performing, the craft of story development. And there's no way around that other than to become a student of it. What we're and not what other people do may or may not map to what works for me. I have found that it's worthwhile to turn on the inner critic. I know everybody says turn her off or turn him off, depending on the voice that you have in your head. But I find that it's worthwhile to turn him up, because and not in a judgmental way, but in that's what I think works or doesn't work, because then you could say, well, why doesn't it work? Why wouldn't it work for me? Because I want to do this, and that's what I want to do. So it's always that gift. The negative is always the gift for the positive. So really be introspective about that, and be a student. And if you want to speak. There's no shortcut, and you got to speak a lot, and you got to get past it's like when you do anything, like probably when I was started doing these virtual TV shows as well. you've got everything. You're managing 50 million different things. You've got buttons. You got to remember what to do and what to push and what to, right? And the first time you do it, it's overwhelming. And there's always something that goes wrong. Always, always, always. There's always something that goes wrong. And if you're new to everything, one little thing will set you into overwhelm. One little thing. And the only way to get past it is to keep doing it, keep doing it. Okay, well, I got this handled. So, 15 things can go wrong and it won't, it won't, what's the word I'm looking for? It won't throw me off. It won't throw me into overwhelm. Won't throw my brain into brain freeze. You just got to keep doing it. How many times have you talked to a singer? I'm also a musician, so I if there are any musicians in the audience, they'll relate to this. You rehearse your song 15 million times at home or in the studio or where it is. You get on stage, and just the fact that you have a microphone in front of you that's the only thing that's different. Plus an audience, plus the blah blah blah. But just that one little thing could say, oh, I forgot the lyrics. How can I forget the lyrics of a song? I know this. I wrote the song. How can I forget the lyrics of the song? It happens. The only way you're going to get past it is by continuing to do it over and over and over and over again. And every time you mess up, every time a new curveball gets thrown at you, you say, thank you, because that won't throw me off next time. Gee, that was, again, another longer answer than you expected. But does that make sense?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I just went through it last night myself. My wife didn't want to be around me when I was going through that moment. So, when you did decide finally to take this and make this your business, instead of, starting up I guess starting up a company is a business in itself, which just is, but not be working for somebody else, I guess. What was your kind of game plan for how you were going to take this and turn it into something you could make a living on?
It makes me laugh because there's so many inherent assumptions in what you just said. There's so many assumptions that you're making in that. First of all, I don't know a lot of people who can make speaking their sole income. It's one of the things that I do. When I do it, it pays me very handsomely. I love doing it. But I also believe that you need a lot of pieces to support it. So it's not like you can be just a speaker. That doesn't make any sense. What are you going to speak on? Well, you're going to speak on a topic. You're going to speak on a topic that you're passionate about. Well, if you're going to be passionate about it, you need to write about it, because writing develops your thinking through it. Don't let anybody tell you that I'm not a good writer. I don't like to write. You need to write. You need to write. Everybody needs to write. Did you know? Here's tangent number 543. The Maya, one of the highest Mayan gods, was the god of writing. He was the god of two things: writing and medicine. Because writing is what helps us develop our thinking. My father used to say, my father was a translator and a writer himself, and he said, clear thinking comes from clear writing. And if you don't have it in black and white in front of you, whether it's on a screen or on a piece of paper, then you have nothing to evaluate. Evaluate. When you speak verbally, words come and go, and they come in one ear, out the other, and it's hard to say, oh, maybe I should put that word in front of that word. And that's the level of craft that we're looking at. Whenever I write a blog, I'm really rehearsing for my next talk. Whenever we do a workshop, I write a blog to make sure that I understand what I'm going to take other people through. And I could look at it and I say, does this make sense? Does this hold water? Is it logical? Is it rational? And if you don't go through the writing part of it, so I'm answering a kind of a different question, but you say, what did, why did, or how did I decide to become a speaker? I decided to make speaking a very important part of my overall business, because that's where I got lost on the tangent to say that there are a lot of pieces to this, and nobody is just a speaker. But speaking is such an important part to any business. And I would recommend to anyone in any industry to become a better speaker. Speaking is your best marketing tool. No matter what you do, whether you're CEO of a tech company, and I've worked with CEOs of tech companies to help, because think about it, no matter what you do, you're going to be asked to do presentations, whether it's a sales presentation, whether it's a presentation at a conference because you're at the leading edge of something, whatever it is. You've got the ability to influence hundreds, if not thousands, of people at one time. And now with with the live events taking the back seat to the things, but really virtual events, it's even more of an opportunity.
I love that you're using the word opportunity a lot more than than you are a problem, right? There's two ways of looking at it, and you always seem to look at the opportunities for it. What
Well, even as I was saying it, talking about how every time I had an experience that threw me off, that did put me into brain freeze as a speaker, and I really would say, well, thank you, because now I know how to, it strengthens my resilience as a speaker. Now, just leading up to this, I said, Tim, very little throws me off. I said, ask me any question. Probably it'll send me into another rabbit hole, but that's a whole other. But because I've put myself in situations that test my limit. I said, oh, okay, that threw me off last time. It won't throw me off next time. And if it throws me off next time, what's different about this? So every challenge is an opportunity.
So as you did say that speaking was a major part of your business.
Absolutely.
And that's one of the things that really drove me to this show, was understanding that exact point, that or speaking is part of the business. Every speaker has different elements to their business. What are some of the other elements of your business in addition to speaking?
So speaking is my most visible part, but I also do workshops, as you know, because you've been in it. I do workshops. I train. I do public workshops. I'll also get called into companies to do workshops. And depending on what it is, it's either in one of three areas. And they all come together, as I told you earlier. No matter what companies ask me in, I'll focus more on one or the other. But one way or another, they'll all, bear on the content. Either on the craft of storytelling, or presentations and speaking, and I get that a lot for salespeople and people who are called to speak more to influence their customers, or business development people. And the third is, what was the third? Oh yeah, brand different. Thank you. Brand differentiate. What sets us apart from everybody else in the market? And again, that goes like financial services companies, they need that for their agents, because when you think about it, everybody has the same business, same thing on their business card. Coaches, they need that. Consultants, they need that, because on their business card, you do the same thing as everybody else. What sets you apart from everybody else who's got the same title on their business card? Well, you got to look inside and say, okay, what sets me apart from everybody else? And that's what I've been doing for 25 years now. All I've done is I've layered storytelling on top of it, because your story is your most powerful tool to communicate your point of difference. So that's why they both go together.
I love it.
And so I do sport. So I do speaking. I do workshops. I do consulting, uh, and I'll still do writing for companies that want to pay me enough to do it, because they'll need their marketing materials written. Sometimes it's a case study. Sometimes it's a positioning piece. Sometimes it's what I call their essential message. It's their core differentiated brand position that then becomes the common thread that everybody in the company uses, so that we know that everybody is speaking on the same page, is on the same page. Everybody is speaking from the same playbook. So I'll do that. Um, I think there's one more thing that I do, but I can't remember what it is.
Well, let's kind of wrap up by just giving somebody who might be looking to get involved in speaking one piece of advice from all your years of wisdom and experience.
Well, okay. Yeah, and you made me remember the thing that I'd forgotten, which is I also run an how can I forget this? It's been my life for 8 years. I also run an organization called Mo Mondays, and Mo Mondays is kind of like the personal side of what I've been doing professionally, is really helping people develop their story personally. And so if people are interested in finding out, there are two sides of what I do. If they're interested in the professional side, go to my name website, neray.com, neray.com, which is where they'll see my speaking engagements, they'll see my workshops, they'll see the training that I do, et cetera, all of that stuff. If they're interested in kind of like the public, personal storytelling aspect of it, then I recommend they go to momondays.com. It's literally M-O mondays.com, and find out, like, when we're allowed to do live events again. This is something that has spread across I started this because it was a personal project 8 years ago in my city. We're now in like 12 cities across the country, which is kind of cool.
Very cool. And anywhere else people can get in touch with you outside of your two websites?
Well, they can call me, they can email me, but all of that information is on the websites. They could go to my social media. I've got LinkedIn, Facebook, and just plug in my name and a
There
whole
you
bunch of stuff.
are.
That's one of the advantages of being 20 years, 25 years in the business and having a semi-public persona, is that, I couldn't hide my history if I wanted to.
Well, I just wanted to thank you so much, Michelle, for joining me on the show today and sharing so many great insights. And I didn't even realize my questions were going to help you remember some of the things that you forgot to say. So, um, but for everybody watching, there's one thing that I would like to invite you to do, because even though we're going to end the broadcast on YouTube, I'm going to stay on with Michel and record one question with one answer from him that we didn't talk about during the show. And if you sign up for our email list at speaking.business, just join the community and sign up for our email list, you will be able to get a weekly newsletter that has the exclusive content that Michelle is going to share with us here in just a minute. So thanks everybody for joining us. And Michelle, thank you. And